We're talking to actresses Taylor Schilling and Michelle Trachtenberg today about the new show. Thanks for joining us, ladies. Talk about this program. Of course, like it or not, people who loved ER are going to say, how's this going to entertain me? Can you give us some feedback?
Well, I think ER was a great show, and I don't think we're not trying to replace anybody or take over anybody's spot. That was a beautiful show, but I think what makes ours, Mercy, really exciting is that it's from the perspective of three very strong, very different female nurses, and we get a chance to follow the ups and downs of their daily lives inside and outside the hospital. And this show is more about those moments before and after the doctor is with the patient. And those are the moments that really, I think, make someone's experience in a hospital. They make it or break it. And we really get a chance to explore that in depth.
And Michelle also talk a little bit about... Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say also talk about the research that kind of goes into this, you know, whether you know someone who worked in a hospital, just how difficult it must be to kind of separate from the patient and how closely you become to the patients.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got a chance to read, I did a lot of online research and was able to read blogs that nurses were doing. I was able to sort of hear their opinions on things because we have medical experts on set, and so we sort of have that area of the medical field covered, but I really wanted to hear their voices and what they were thinking on a day-to-day basis. And basically, our first and foremost goal here is to honor the jobs that these men and women do every day. Nurses are extraordinarily amazing, wonderful people who save lives. And at one point, you know, a lot of little girls and boys out there said, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a doctor. So basically what we're doing with Mercy is we're giving you a realistic look at what nurses have to go through. And even though there's a lot of trials and tribulations, at the end of the day, there's a great appreciation for the job. And that's what we want to show the audience. And, you know, we want to be as accurate as possible because we want real nurses that will hopefully be watching the show to say, yes, that's exactly how that happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there room for, I mean, certainly there are reasons to smile as a nurse. You have to almost probably to get through the day. Is there going to be room for a little comedy? Can you show sort of the human side that relies on humor to get through some of the stresses?
Oh yeah, I think that's one thing that I really love about the show, and I've loved about these scripts is that we have a wonderful creative team and a really brilliant writers, and it's a beautiful mix of the comedy and the sarcasm that we use to get through those really tough moments in life. So there's a real balance between comedy and drama in this show. It's a fine line, and I think we've been walking it pretty well. But that's also what makes it relatable. I think that's how we as humans deal with situations, dramatic situations in our lives. We fall back on humor. So I think people will be able to relate to that, and I mean, I certainly do. That's something that I'm drawn to in the scripts.
Your character, Nurse Callahan, has just returned to the hospital from a tour in Iraq. Is that correct? So talk about kind of how you're going to involve your training and knowledge in the actual hospital setting.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that makes Veronica very special. She has just returned from 2 tours of duty as a combat nurse in Iraq. And while she was at war, survival at any cost was the only priority. And the patient's welfare was the only thing that mattered. And she really had to act from her gut in order to get her job done well. And she's back at Mercy Hospital in New Jersey trying to transition back into her life with her friends and her family and in her relationships, as well as in the more bureaucratic world of a civilian hospital. And so she's a bit of a bull in a china shop. She's a rowdy, tough girl, and she sometimes needs to break the rules in order to help her patients, and then kind of figure out a way to get herself out of those situations. So she's fierce, but she's also very much still at war with herself and vulnerable and raw, and we get a chance to see all of that. she's complicated, and I love her.
It sounds that way, definitely. And unfortunately, we don't have time to
Yeah.
get any other character, but I know that you're a naive newcomer, which I know a lot of us can relate to, certainly in the hospital. So we're going to look forward to both your characters and the whole show, of course. Ladies, will you try to save some lives for us while you're out there as well?
We'll try.
All right, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
guys.
you.
In the
Bye.
studio for WMBFnews.com, I'm Michael Maley.